On the factory floor, a giant cable spool spins faster than anyone realizes, turning routine work into a trap. On the factory floor, one worker feeds material onto a massive rotating spool, hands guiding the line just inches from the drum. Around him, the hum of machines fills the air, while another worker stands nearby watching. The rotating drum suddenly catches the loose feed, yanking it into its grip without hesitation. The spool accelerates, the line tightening with each spin as tension builds. What began as a routine feed instantly turns into a runaway hazard, the machine's momentum pulling harder with every rotation until the crew scrambles to shut it down. Never, ever reach into or feed a moving reel by hand, because once it grabs, you won't have the strength to fight it. In the cramped lanes of a loading yard, a forklift creeps forward in near silence, closing in on a worker who has no idea the machine is right behind him. A worker moves steadily down the narrow path, flanked by stacks of covered cargo. Just behind, a forklift pushes forward with a heavy load lifted high, the driver's view blocked by the stack he's carrying. The worker remains unaware, steps away from the machine's advancing front. Each second, the gap narrows as the forklift edges forward, its raised load blocking the driver's view. The path ahead disappears, leaving no safe clearance for those on the ground. What began as routine movement suddenly becomes a blind hazard in motion. Never ever walk directly in front of a moving forklift, and never operate one with loads lifted so high that the driver's vision is blocked. Because when visibility is lost, awareness disappears, and the machine becomes a blind threat to anyone in its path. A dump truck lifts its bed high, but beneath the raised steel, danger is already building, silent and unseen. A worker is crouched beneath the raised bed of a truck, leaning close into its frame. The only sound here is the creak of steel and the hiss of hydraulics holding the bed above. Everything feels stable. But in truth, all it would take is one failure for the situation to change completely. Without warning, the hydraulics falter, and the massive dump bed slams downward with violent force. The steel frame meets with a thunderous crash, shaking the ground and filling the air with dust. What moments earlier felt stable is revealed as a fragile illusion, a single failure exposing the full danger of unguarded weight. Always secure raised loads. Use safety locks, install props, and block the bed before entering the danger zone. Never, ever trust a raised dump bed, loader arm, or any hydraulically lifted machine part without securing it. At a gunpowder line, a single spark meets a drifting cloud, and the entire building answers at once. A small crew works on a raised loading platform. Bags are being hoisted and tipped into a red feeder that drops material onto a conveyor toward a hopper. The air is dusty. Spilled granules skitter across sheet metal decking. Handrails and frames form a tight lattice around motors' bearings and belts. Then the atmosphere shifts. In an instant, ignition sparks a chain reaction through the dust cloud, racing along conveyors and across the platform. Suspended particles lift and fuel the blast, pressurizing the air and spreading fire through ducts and framing. A second surge follows, showing how quickly dust can amplify into disaster. Never, ever handle energetic powders in a dusty, ungrounded, partially confined space. Eliminate the fuel in the air, the spark on the equipment, and the places where pressure can build, because a small flash in a dust cloud becomes a traveling fire front, then a secondary explosion that the structure itself amplifies. On a narrow slope, a backhoe loader edges forward with its bucket down, but the ground beneath is far less solid than it looks. A backhoe loader works across the edge of a hillside construction site, its front bucket lowered, scraping and leveling. A metal fence runs the length of the slope, a thin barrier against the forested drop below. The operator moves carefully, tires pressing into soft fill. From above, the surface looks stable, but underneath the soil is uncompacted, sitting on the slope without reinforcement. Every pass of the machine shifts weight, pressing closer to the drop. The loader creeps forward, bucket raised against the wall. Suddenly, the ground gives way. The fill collapses, undermining the slope and sending the machine lurching toward the drop. Dust and debris surge downward as soil, rock, and steel tumble together, showing how quickly unstable ground can fail. Never, ever operate loaders, cranes, or excavators on unreinforced or uncompacted edges, and never assume a freshly graded slope will hold the weight of machinery, because soil without compaction has no strength against sudden load. In a freight yard, a driver jumps out of his cab in a rush without securing the truck, and the vehicle begins to drift. A worker in a high-visibility jacket moves behind the container, opening the lock and seals. His focus is on the doors. His back is to the lane. Nearby, a truck stops hurriedly. The driver, rushing to get out, leaves the cab without applying the parking brake or chocking the wheels. On the slight grade of the lane, the vehicle's mass is poised to move. The unattended truck begins to roll, inching forward into the narrow lane. The massive trailer drifts steadily, shifting out of alignment and disrupting the unloading area. In moments, the routine yard space transforms into a hazard zone, showing how quickly an unsecured vehicle can create danger. Never, ever exit a truck without fully securing it. Parking brake set, transmission secured, engine stabilized, and wheels chocked where required, because an unbraked vehicle can roll and turn any standing space into a deadly pinch point. Inside a machine shop, a suspended load begins to tilt, and within seconds, gravity decides the outcome no one can stop. Overhead, a chain hoist is anchored to a steel column, its hook lowered to lift a heavy steel block, large, angular, and weighing far more than the workers standing around it. 3 workers cluster around the block, guiding the piece upright. Their hands are on the steel, their weight leaned in, pushing and steadying. The entire operation is being carried out manually, each man within arm's reach of the suspended mass. There are no guide poles, no barriers, no exclusion zone, just human hands against steel and the assumption that the lift will hold steady. As the block tilts, the balance shifts in an instant. The suspended load sways out of alignment, slipping off center. With no taglines or control, the steel piece swings down hard, striking the floor and sending a jolt through the shop. What began as a steady lift suddenly turns into a dangerous, uncontrolled drop zone. Loads don't fail slowly, they fail all at once. Never, ever stand within the fall zone of a suspended load, and never guide heavy steel with your hands or body. Use taglines, lift points designed for balance, and keep clear. Inside a steel workshop, a massive steel coil shifts, and in an instant, the workshop floor turns into a race against gravity. On the workshop floor, a single massive coil rests precariously on its base. Its polished surface hides the danger of its weight. Thousands of pounds balanced with nothing to hold it steady. 2 workers stand close, finishing their tasks, unaware that the coil's center of gravity has already betrayed them. Without warning, the coil shifts forward, breaking free from its balance. The polished surface offers no resistance, and the massive weight tumbles. In an instant, the workshop transforms into a danger zone as the steel coil gathers momentum, slamming into the ground with crushing force. The sudden impact makes clear how quickly instability can turn routine work into chaos. Heavy coils must never be left standing unsecured, because once they begin to roll, no human strength or instinct can stop them. Stability restraint systems and clear exclusion zones are the only defenses against their sheer momentum. Anything less is a gamble with physics itself. One spray too close, and the air explodes with fury. A worker rises in a bucket lift, the pole towering against the clear blue sky. His task is supposed to be routine, but above him clings a hornet's nest, an unplanned hazard in his path. With only a can of spray in hand, he leans upward, aiming at the nest just feet away. The confined bucket leaves him boxed in, offering no quick escape if things go wrong. The instant the spray hits, the hornets erupt, swarming outward in every direction. The air around the lift fills with movement, the confined bucket offering no cover. What began as a simple attempt to clear the nest now spirals into a full-scale hazard, with the elevated worker suddenly cut off from a safe retreat. Never, ever spray a hornet or wasp nest from close range, especially while elevated. Always keep maximum distance and use proper control methods from the ground, or leave it to professionals trained for pest removal. High above the rail platform, danger hides in the lines overhead, waiting for just one mistake. On a raised maintenance platform, a lone worker stands near overhead electrical lines. The walkway is narrow. The voltage above immense, and every move demands caution. As he leans in, the gap closes. In a sudden flash, high voltage arcs downward, leaping across the air to the platform. The instant surge transforms the quiet walkway into a blinding storm of light, a stark reminder of how little clearance electricity requires. Never, ever work near energized overhead lines without isolation. Electricity leaps farther than you think. Electricity doesn't give warnings twice. Always de-energize, always verify isolation, and always respect the invisible reach of high voltage. Don't forget to share what you learned today in the comments. Your insight could save a life. Take care.